For those of you who are new around here, first of all, welcome. But for those of you who are returning subscribers who have been very patient with me over the last 10 months while I have not even released a single video, again, my thanks are with you. Sometimes life just gets in the way. And today, we're going to celebrate the return with probably something I should have been doing in 22 episodes' time. But we're going to do a world tour. Specifically, the world tour everybody wants to see. The world tour and the history behind the Spawn Town city. So sit back, relax and enjoy. I'm back. Oh, and for those of you who don't watch to the end of the videos, here is a sneak peek of the episodes to come. Welcome to the history of Absentduck. Place to begin the book than with the first chapter. And the first chapter of this world began with the discovery of a triple skeleton farm not too far from the spawn. Now all of these hidden tunnels and entranceways have been added later on, but as you can see from this was the perfect start to our world with the easiest XP grinder we could ever make. A bit of buckets with some water and some signs to make them flow into a killing chamber. This became probably the most used place that is in the world for at least maybe the first year or so until I got a better XP grinder. I still come back here on occasion just to grind up the bones and steal the arrows out of the chests. And back here is the crusher, which actually no longer works in this version of the game, but this is the time lapse from episode 1 is me building this. This is also the infinite flame, which for some reason never extinguished, so I closed it in glass and it's been there ever since. Barring the triple skeleton spawners that we have below us right here, this area was not done with just 3. It decided to give us 5. And the other 2 we haven't really put much use to, but we could have done if we'd have thought about it. We have a spider dungeon just down here in the cave system, a little bit out of reach, it's just there in the corner. But if we head our way back up the stairs again and turn down here to the left hand side, we have a zombie spawner. Now the original idea for this was to make sort of a separation chamber so that I could separate the armor that spits out from the skeletons, from the bones and the arrows. But what we ended up doing instead is that you see the hoppers underneath them here. There is a dispenser over here in the corner, and all of these chests over here are just full of the items you should probably just be throwing away. But you never know when I'm going to need dispensers, so these are very well kept for that very purpose. The only minor change I've really made in this area since then is to put a bubble column in this instead of the alternating signs and water source blocks, and as you can see in this version of the game, it still works very, very well. What you may also notice in the background is 2 pistons there with some ice and a nice chamber up there in the corner. That is for the arena above, and that is where we are heading next. Making our way out of the skeleton farm and back onto the surface here, what we have here is a very classic 2013 original mob arena design, which I built originally on the Pocket Edition and transferred over into this world with a quick simple little bit of redesigning basing it above our triple skeleton farm. The idea of this was, which has never came to fruition, was to have a form of mob arena where we could funnel out over certain levels like some skeletons and have some zombies, maybe even some spiders to come out of this so you could run around the arena, and with every level you would complete you would be able to head back to this section over here and it would give you rewards based on the completion that you got up to. The idea was for it to fire up random bits of armor from the collection chambers that we had underneath that we've just shown, but we found that because of it being amplified terrain, it was hard to navigate and find all the caves in the area, which meant I couldn't funnel the mobs into spawning in certain locations. It was either going to be a skeleton fight or nothing, and we may revisit this project at some point in the future, but we may have to move our arena to somewhere else in the world. I'll just give you a quick glance of what the arena looks like from above, and you can see a nice solid roof there and a little bit of textured design over the back here. This is one of the few areas outside of the main town itself that's actually been decorated. There's a nice little bridge here over the water. And as you can see, as we work our way around here, you're starting to see the exterior wall of the spawn town city. And this is where most of my time has been in this world. Despite the on and off occasion of me working in different places, for the most part of the 6 years I've had this world, this is the place I have been. And this is where all of my resources have gone into. Originally I was trying to stop mobs from wandering in and out of the city as I was working on it, but as time has progressed, we've not really needed to keep them out anymore, because nothing really spawns anymore because it's lit up. So this is the first part of the city that was built. You can probably see as we work our way through the slight tweak in design of where all the city buildings have come from. If you haven't recognised it already, and for those of you who aren't aware, the style of this is inspired by Arcus's Play Minecraft server town build that he was doing. This is back when Play Minecraft was actually a big thing and people would actually play on the server. I didn't really do that myself. It was more I was just interested in watching the development of this town that he was building for a spawn area, which never really got released, but a lot of the building style I did steal from that because, well, it's intriguing and it looks clean and it's nice and it's really easy to replicate on a large scale. Lots of these buildings don't really have interiors, they're just exteriors because, well, I'm the only one in the world and I don't really wander around in it. I like to be able to fly through, and having the exterior shots that you were seeing at the beginning of the video is all the difference to me. But yeah, so there's lots of these here where they've got little bits of towers, like for example that one's got a ladder you can get to the roof on. Lots of these are still not finished. You can see the areas that I was still working on. So obviously up there we have a sort of forgotten old tower, and we'll take a look at that later on. But we're going to work our way through down to the sort of the southern side and the lower part of the city. So this whole section right here has been dug down about 15 blocks or so. So it was all roughly about the height where I am here right now. So about 74, 76-ish Y coordinate. And what I wanted to do is give the city some scale. So what we've done is we dug it down and put some staircases in like this to sort of split up the texture. As you can see, I've also been working on getting rid of the torches in this area by replacing them with glowstone and putting carpets on them. Well, in the case of that one, that's a pumpkin, but it's the same thing. It doesn't really matter what the lighting is as long as there's lighting there underneath. What we have in this lower part of the city is all the market stalls, where my original plan was to put villagers inside them, so when we'd get each of the unique traders. So, for example, back then when you had the blacksmiths and the farmers and things like that, and all of these are sort of labeled for that. So obviously this one would have had priests, then farmers, this one is blacksmiths, this one being librarians, and this building I think was labelled away for a sort of a potion room, I think, at one point. Obviously now I was labelling it for an armory. And over here as well we have a cheap and nasty sheep farm, which back on the Xbox 360 edition when this world was mostly based, is they had the problem in this world where animals would despawn because of the maximum limit that worlds had. I think it was about 50, and because obviously it's an amplified world, mobs would spawn pretty much anywhere. I see you up there. Don't think I don't see you, creeper. Trying to ruin my day. Oh, try that again. I give up on him. He's not going to disturb us from up there. But yeah, so there's more lower sections over here, more market stalls that we were filling out. There's a couple of sheep that seem to have spawned in one of the farming pens. Which you're trampling all my crops, you two. What do you think you're doing? I don't appreciate this. You know that, don't you? I don't want you wasting my time here. Do you want to, like, come out? I'll open the gate for you. Actually, I should probably shut that one. Please leave. You're not welcome. Get out of my carrot pen. Thank you. Now go wander around the city like you're supposed to. Quick refreshing sleep later, and let's continue on our tour. Don't know what you're talking about. Don't see anything there. Inside this building over here is a quick, cheap cocoa bean farm, which I really need to expand upon at some point. And down here is just some leftover chests from when I used to go fishing in the area. Not really bothered to have moved any of the stuff because I don't really need any of it. Before we start to show off the river and the upper part of the city, we're just going to take a diversion over here to the left hand side to show off all the farms that are in the lower part of the city, which are buried within the houses in this area. Down here we have the central minecart drop-off location for all the items that the farms are producing. And if we get lucky, the farm, well, there you go, there goes the minecart off to the left-hand side there, going off to the pumpkin and the sugarcane. Over in that direction there is the melon farm, and together all of the items get dropped off in these chests over here. And I've probably got in this world more melon, pumpkin and sugarcane than I'm ever going to need. Well, maybe not the case with sugarcane, given the fact that I need it for paper and rockets all the time, but you get my point. We'll just take a quick look over here and we can have a look at these. As you can see, they're just basic farms. Looks like some of the seeds have broken on this one, because that should really not be spawning there. But all it uses is the occasional observer to get the piston to push the item, and then the minecart just runs underneath. Same with the sugarcane farm, which is in this building over here. As you can see, when they grow up to the third height there, it pushes them on the second block. I know in more recent versions of the game you can actually have the observer on the bottom, so that when it grows only to height number 2, then it will push it off. Because when it grows right now, the bottom sugarcane actually receives an update which triggers the observer. But this farm is old, and I'm not willing to come in here and change it anytime soon. This is kind of the point of leaving it how it was, to remember it as sort of a timestamp from that period. Looks like I've got an unwelcomed guest here in the tree. Do you want to just stay out of my way for once? I don't really need the emerald, so that can stay right up there. But what we can do is we can sneak our way up this little back alley staircase right over here, under a little bit of a nice archway, and we can take the upper platform. We could either walk back across to that side over there, towards the river and the central locations, but what we're going to do is we're going to wind our way around over this side, and just quickly show off the melon farm. Same design as the pumpkin farm, so I won't really showcase too much of it. But if we go to the back of the building over here, you can see the minecart tower that we have in place for when the minecart makes its visit. The plan also was to extend the minecart to go further off in this direction, because the original plan was to have a central storage room up here, but plans changed, not once, but twice. Because originally I wanted to put the storage room up there in the skyship, which we will get to in just a second, but then after that, when I was building the broken tower over there, I decided, hang on, why don't I put the tower and have the storage room underneath it? But quickly, as you probably figured out, I outgrew both of those ideas, and neither of them really came to fruition. So, if I just loop around over here to complete this northern side of the city, this is the archway on the wall, and it takes you onto the inside over here, where we have the sort of broken, old, ruined side of the city, or at least that was how the story went in my head. The idea is that this ancient ruins was here before the entire city was, and that since then it's just been preserved so that none of it's fallen apart any further. There are also some other little side pieces here that we can get in and out of that were never really completed, but also it gives me access to be able to fly out these days now that I have an elytra. So that covers this major part of the city, that lower section over there, and all of these towers over here as well. You can also get on the inside of this one too, and there's a pretty nice view over here now that I've taken out my old iron farm, which used to be situated right there where those villagers are, but again, since it didn't work in the version of the game that I'm playing, I just ripped it out. The next major project undertaken in the city, alongside trying to build all of this, was to have a central minecart track running through the city that all the farms could connect to, and that every single one of these farms could run then to the central storage system. The problem being, each of these that meant we had to have track selectors so that only certain minecarts would go in certain directions when we wanted them to. So this is what the really complicated and convoluted system is sat underneath it. I don't know how well you can see it from here. There's one of them there. A lot of it's hidden inside that house right there. And there's another one hidden right here. It's just a cheap and nasty item filter, but the idea was that you would have loaders and unloaders across all the different places that you had farms. The best example of this is over on the far side, so if I just sort of cut across to a different section of the world just really quickly so I can explain what's going on. Up here, there's an automatic melon farm hidden away, and as it grows, as you can see, it just puts a couple in these little hoppers. So when the minecart made its way over here, the first slot would always be filled with, say, a melon, which meant then that when the melon got all the way over to where its track selector is filled with melon, then it would only ever turn on that track when it picked it out. But the idea was then, because the minecarts are moving off in a different direction, so you can see here, this one is labelled for melon because it was the area where it was going to have either or of the storage systems. So as soon as it would pick it up as it ran past over here, the idea was then that there would be an activator rail which could have, firstly have hoppers pass your item to the next, to the dispenser. But the fact that minecarts are too quick for that, what we were going to have to do is have it dispense an item, then have the item that it took out of the hopper fed into it as sort of a replacement for the next minecart, and so we could run it on a loop like that. This idea has not gone away completely and is definitely going to be used again in the future. I have a lot of big plans for the Minecart Track, especially because the whole point of this world is to connect everything together. And that's the thing I'll drive on a lot, is connecting stuff, because yes, you might have all these lots of different projects and buildings and things like that, but if you don't connect them together with like a design or a story or something, your world feels much more disconnected. But if we follow the track down this direction, we are going to take ourselves off into the yellow track selector, which over here, if you follow it all the way through, you can see there is the hopper for selecting what colour it needs to be, and it will follow it all the way up, and it will take us to the sky ship. This was actually the alternate path that I dug out for where the minecart would have gone if it was going to go inside of the tower. As you can see over here, we have a little bit of a dam built there. Let's take a quick look at the dam while I'm here before I forget. It's best viewed by an elytra from this side, so you can sort of see it. We funneled it into this little space, and then we dug all of this out manually down here, which it still needs a little bit of terraforming, so at least the water in the city connected to somewhere, because all the waterways are man-made, but I wanted to connect them up so that you had this way where you could see the whole city was connected together, so you can see all the water underneath this tree here. It runs from there, it runs down that little canal where that boat is, and then it runs down, up and over to the far side where you can see all those bridges just in the distance over there. But then again, it also connected to all of this as well, because this water actually connects all the way back round, so it would have been a full loop that you would have been able to take a boat through. Kind of typical, really, that I decided to try and sleep away the night, and within the first few seconds of me hitting record, it starts raining again. Sort of typical, really, given the start of the video it was also raining, so I guess the continuity is pretty good in this one. But here in front of us, before I forget, this is the skyship. It's missing a couple of its sails because of the despawning sheep problem that I mentioned earlier. I will eventually get back to this and finish these off because there isn't really many to do. I want to do at least these two on this back mast here. But as we can see from the size of the ship, it is never going to be big enough to put any redstone in or any chests in whatsoever. So as you can see, it's pretty much empty. Obviously, you can see where all the guns would be, and it's got some good views from poking through on the holes. But my sort of story behind this is that ships, you can fly, essentially. I wasn't really too keen on the way that I was doing it. Just move the ladders around there just a quick second so that we can get back out. And if we climb the ladder on the front mast over here, you get a pretty decent view of the world as you're going up. The only downside to this really is the fact that there's this giant floating island in the middle, which I've wanted to dig out and get rid of for so long. I've actually started it a couple times, taking layers out from the top, but it's just so big. Until I get an infinite amount of TNT or a TNT bomber, it's probably going to stay there, but I would like to stand on the ship one time and look to the castle on the other side, but right now it's just not a possibility. But what you do get from this ship is a pretty darn good view of everything else. So if we walk out to the very front of the ship over here, where you would probably have like your skull and crossbones or your mermaid or whatever design that you have on the ship, but the view from here is pretty stunning, if I say so myself, and that's not me being totally biased whatsoever. But that takes us perfectly onto the center of the world right here, where we have what is basically where I spend 99% of my time, which is AFK in the storage room down here, which is just situated underneath the wall which divides the lower part of the city and the upper part of the city. This is also where my main nether portal is, and just by pure coincidence, the world spawn is actually on 0, which is really handy for when I die in the nether by accident. I can just hop in the portal and get to wherever I need to get to. This is also the area which houses our end portal, or one of anyway. Because of the weird conversion from a PC amplified terrain to the Xbox 360. We ended up with, I think, 2 strongholds back to back here, and I think there's actually a second nether portal through one of the walls here, if I'm not mistaken. I believe it's just over in that direction over there. But yes, we do have a easy access end portal right here, and if we hop into our end portal, there isn't really much in here. The only annoying thing is I built a little bit of a texture round the what used to be the spawn location, and I just looked at an enderman, I think, which you can see over here. I wanted it to blend in with the castle design, which we're going to get to in a moment's time. But then when I moved it to the Xbox One, my end island moved my obsidian, and I've never really done much time in here ever since. I also, for some reason, after killing my second dragon, ended up with a second portal, which is a bit strange, but I guess I could use this to my advantage by having, like, items go in the bottom one and people be able to go in the top one. There you go, you can see my world spawn because I haven't got a bed set because I keep breaking the one that I've been sleeping in for this video is right here in the middle. Again, this is another storage room which really was supposed to be temporary but has turned into a much more long-term solution. It's only really now, 6 years later, that I'm starting to outgrow this, which is fine, because I've started to do a little bit of end raiding to actually get myself some supplies, which I probably need to go out and do some more end raiding, because I died recently in the nether trying to find a bastion and find Pigstep, which I did find it, but then within like 3 seconds or 5 seconds later I fell in the lava, and because I don't have netherite armor, sad face, I had to go and get my stuff all replaced, hence the third last word, because it's a funny pun on the fact that I keep losing my sword every time I go somewhere. Just by pure coincidence, though, the one thing I didn't lose was the bow, which I would have been really sad to lose it, because I only have 2 bows in this world which have got mending and infinity on, which obviously in this game you can't actually get anymore. Over here we have our Complete the Monument. It's pretty much an extended monument because we tossed all of the ore blocks on the side there. And we can now head over to this side of the city, and as we can walk past all the, basically the watery parts of the city, where I just sort of didn't want to come up with this sort of interwoven back streets section, so we just filled it with water, and I think it's worked out very well. Looks like we've got some a water source block missing over there. There is also a boat launcher hidden underneath this. I'm not too sure if it works at the moment, but what you would do is you would ride the boat in underneath, just down here like so, and then it would launch you up as you go up there. Something rather like this. I guess that's what happens when you don't test your stuff before you start showcasing what's off in the world. But then again, it's sort of to be expected given how old the world is. So if we head over onto this side, just on the lower section before we head up to the castle, we have another enchanting setup just in one of the houses over here. And for every time that I put a well in, which is one of the mystery things you would see if I ever put a world download up, is there's always a little bit of a cave underneath these. So there's a little bit of a mystery down in each and every single little one. Obviously we have all of the horse stables up here as well, and all of this area is very symmetrical, and there was a lot of random amplified bits of terrain that had to be taken out in this section, as you can see from the amount of space which is actually sat underneath. None of this really existed for a long time, and there used to be a ravine sat at the back there as well. And over to the final part of the city before we finish off with the castle itself. This is probably the most recent part that was built to the city, and this is where we have the lovely custom church design which I've come up with myself. One of the few buildings actually that is not stolen from anything else, which I'm really happy about. It's actually the second time that I've built this, and the interior is not finished in this one, so I do need to go back and finish the flooring, and also putting back in all the ceiling beams and the bell which used to hang down from the tall point of the tower. It just reminds me really of like playing Assassin's Creed games, where what I wanted to do with it originally was have a way of climbing up the outside of it to get to the top. Round here we have the top northern part of the wall. We seem to have a guest in one of our houses. Didn't realise you'd rented this place, mate. I'm sorry, but it wasn't for you. And this is also where I have my graveyard of all the past horses and things like that that have died to mysterious circumstances. Obviously, this is the mushroom, which we got in, I think, episode like 24 or 26, something like that. Died to lightning of all things, which was one of the weirdest things I've ever caught on camera. We made a multi-mule, number 2, struck by lightning. This is the mule which was actually kept inside one of the houses for the longest time as well, one of the connecting points between 2 bases. Douglas was our horse from the world prior to this, but I figured I would move his rest in peace sign over to this one as well. And obviously the first mule obviously sees his place over here as well. We do actually have one to add to this at some point, which I think I might do at some point soon, which is to add Roadrunner, sadly my latest horse, to bite the dust. He fell from a high place. Wasn't my fault really, I totally wasn't riding him and fell into a ravine with him. But yeah, that was kind of sad because he was a speed demon of a horse. There we go. Rest in peace, buddy. You're in a better place now. But if we just head over here to complete a full circuit of the city itself, what we have here is one of the earliest potato farms that we had in this area, sort of built around where the farm was. And since then I've added a carrot, potato and wheat farm up into the sky above us. It's also a farm that I've since been tearing down because I've wanted to move it somewhere else. This farm actually is automatic, or at least it was for a time, because there's a minecart track that runs underneath it. Obviously there isn't a farmer villager in there anymore, so it doesn't really work. But yeah, it's all about the memories of where all these things were. And inside this house right here, take a quick peek on the inside. As you can see, we've got more item filters on the inside. If we just cross over the track here without getting run over into the final upper part of the city, this is where I was storing all of the llamas when I was going for the llama achievement, because periodically I would see 1 or 2 spawn and I would frantically stop what I was doing to try and get them into a safe location. But obviously with the animal despawning, it was rather tricky because all of them had to be kept in one place for a really short period of time, and it just wasn't that possible. Here we actually have the balcony, which serves the purpose to also have a good viewing platform for looking at the dam here, which we were seeing back earlier. But this is basically a full loop round of the entire city. There's a couple of buildings here which you can see from the outskirts, and we did actually start expanding out this direction, but I never really took it any further than this one building, which is sort of half finished so far. But last but not least, my pièce de résistance, the biggest build I've probably ever done in survival mode so far, the Spawn Town Castle. As you can see, it's got a rather simple design on the outside, lots of repeating patterns for the windows, but the fact of the scale of this thing and the fact that it's built into the mountainside meant that there was a lot of work to go into this. A lot of digging took place on the inside to dig out all of the buildings and all of the rooms on the interior. It's symmetrical on both sides, and a lot of it is still not complete given the grandiose scale of it, but as you walk through from the outside over here, you get this lovely exterior view, actually, of looking down upon the city. Most of the city is actually situated below the rail line, and to have the castle situated all above it sort of just worked out perfectly. In hindsight, I should have really been using 2x2 trees, but I was just farming all of the spruce trees down here for all of the wood on the castle and all of the staircases on the inside. The ground floor wise, this is probably the one that was designed for all the bedrooms and the kitchens and things like that, so it's a bit of a maze of all little weird shaped rooms and corridors. It's the same on both sides, and obviously we have staircases which lead you up to the next floor. And as you see on this side right here, there are actually a couple secret tunnels which lead you from one side of the castle to the other. In fact, what we'll do is we'll weave our way through this one and whip across to the far left-hand side. What we have on the second floor of the castle are 2 large open spaces, which one was going to be a dining hall and the other was going to be a library. And I still plan to fill these ones out. Oh yeah, I completely forgot this guy is here. There was a trouble cause, a villager hanging around in the castle for the longest time, and he seemed to manage to find himself getting stuck. And all I did was give him a nudge down the staircase into this little trap, and he has been there ever since. I may find use of this farmer at some point, but for now he stays in his cage. If we loop around here, coming out on the opposite side as we've just had a look from, you can see that it also goes further down, but there isn't really much down there, and it's still very much working progress, so we're not really going to go down there and have a look. What we are going to do is we're going to head up the grand, giant, Hogwarts-inspired staircase, except ours doesn't move because, well, it's Minecraft, and look at the second floor. So as you can see, as I've just mentioned, 2 larger rooms on either side. This would have been the dining hall on this left-hand side over here, and on the right-hand side over here, we were going to have a library full of bookshelves with obviously a little balcony which I started building up the top there so that it would have been sort of multi-layered with inside the room itself. As we continue to climb up the castle, there's still plenty more layers to go. This is where currently I situate my throne, my new netherite throne as it is currently being quoted to be. I feel like it's a little bit dark and it's probably in the wrong place for this castle, but for the way that it's shaped currently, that's where it's situated. Again, there's lots more spare rooms hanging around in this place right here. That has a secret tunnel which you can actually get out onto the side of the cliff faces here and escape if you had to. But again, this would have all been bedrooms and storage rooms and rooms for your servants, and then on the top floor up here, this would have been broken up even further into rooms for your sort of your knights and your guards and all sort of places like that. So we're pretty high up at this point now, as you can see, just about get a clear view outside the windows here to see the town below us. But if we go up the final set of stairs to the very tippy top of the tower here, we can get out onto the roof. But what we can do, last but not least, is head up to the very top of the tower right here, which is only accessible by elytra, but is still probably my favourite shot to make in the entire city. I just wish that the render distance on the console was a little bit further so I could get more of it in. But alas, I think this is the perfect place to end this world tour of the city. There is so much more in my world to showcase, but given that this is the majority of where I have spent my time, I figured it for once and for all, let's do a world tour, but actually showcase the city itself. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you've all enjoyed, and I guess I will see you all again in the next one, which this time won't be 10 months away. Bye bye.